Welcome back. You're watching NewsX and I'm Vaishali Kohli. In a stunning escalation, US forces conducted airstrikes in Venezuela yesterday, capturing President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, who are now in custody in New York facing drug trafficking charges. Global reactions are sharply divided. Many nations have condemned the operation as a violation of international law and sovereignty. Russia called it an act of armed aggression and demanded Maduro's release. Many US adversaries, including some of Venezuela's nearest neighbors, condemned the strikes, while other governments around the world called for de-escalation and voiced concern for their citizens in the Latin American nation. I now have my guest joining me. Glenn Grant, ex-advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine, joining me live from Riga, Latvia, and Satoru Nagao, fellow at Hudson Institute, and he's joining me live from Tokyo in Japan. I want to go across to Glenn first. Glenn, how do you see the entire situation now after all the developments that have unfolded? Is de-escalation even possible?
That is a very good question, and that will depend completely, of course, upon two factors. One, that the government or the remaining government, which is of course pro Maduro in Venezuela, and on the other side, how much appetite the Americans have actually got for continuing with the activities that they've been doing. Whether they just want to one in and straight out again, or whether they're going to follow the Trumpian suggestion of, we're going to run the government. Well, that is something that I don't think people have really thought through. I think that Trump actually said that off the top of his head, because to run a government that is filled with people that don't like you, which is the Maduro government, plus the governors, plus most of his friends, is a recipe for disaster, frankly. So I can't call this. I can't make a judgment on what's going to happen next, for the simple reason that I don't think that half the people that are involved in this have themselves thought through what they are going to do next and how they are going to view it. So I think we've got a good few weeks to go yet before we actually see this settle and see what strength Trump has got it behind his words, whether people will agree with him or and follow his ideas, or whether actually it was just him and blah blah blah. And I will finish that point by reminding you of all the things he said about Gaza and what they were going to do in Gaza, none of which have happened. And I tend to think that this is more Trump talking than any agreed and thought through plan, because to run another country, that is expensive, it's difficult, and it's high risk. They're not just going to fall over on their backs and say, please, please come and help us.
All right. I want to now go across to Satoru. And Satoru is, of course, Satoru is joining me from Japan. Now, Satoru, Japan's, of course, also taken a stand. They've not clearly mentioned Trump, but they've said that they consistently emphasize respect for international law. I'd like you to elaborate that, please.
Of course, there is a controversial issue, the view from the international law. But in case of Japan, Japan needs alliance, and international law supports alliance is good, but if there is a battle between alliance or international law, of course priority is alliance for Japan. Because Japan faces China, Russia, and North Korea, and Japan needs a US support. In this case, Japan's concern is, if the US fail in the Venezuela, and it looks like the US is weak, such kind of the image spread, and it will affect the attitude of the China, Russia, and North Korea. So they will provoke Japan in the future. So that's why Japan wish the U.S. Show strong, U.S. Become a strong image, strong image country. So if the U.S. succeeded in the Venezuela, of course, view from the international there is a controversial, but view from the strength, it looks like very strong. So that's why which situation is better for Japan is very clear. The strong image of the U.S. Based on the U.S. success in Venezuela, that is better for Japan, the Japanese thinking. Of course, view from the international law, of course, Russia's aggression to Ukraine was if we allowed Russia to invade Ukraine based on ignoring the international law, that is not good because there's a possibility China will follow, then China will invade Taiwan. That is a concerning point for Japan. But the most important thing is strength and not the international law. So that's why in this case, Japan's priority is very clear. Japan will not criticize the U.S. move this time because we wish the success of the United States. That is needed for Japan.
All right. I'll come back to both my guests. Now, Sri Lanka's ruling party viewers, Janata Vimukti Peramuna, has condemned the U.S. invasion of Venezuela and abduction of democratically elected President Nicolás Maduro and his wife. We believe that nobody will approve of the forceful military aggression against Venezuela by the United States of America. JVP, a major stakeholder in the ruling National People's Power, said in a statement. Now, I want to go across to Glenn Grant. Now, Glenn, whatever said and done, whatever Maduro's done, you know, the way this man was literally, I don't want to use the word abducted, but of course, you know, they barged into his bedroom and picked him up, you know, the way it was done. And all of this when Maduro was ready for conversation a day prior. He was open to talks. What would you like to say about the way this was done?
Oh, well, I mean, the first thing is that the operation in military terms was amazing, and there's no question about that. That what they did was as good as it possibly gets in military terms, and I think that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff made it absolutely clear and right that no other country in the world could have done this in the way that they did it. But you know, the ethics of doing it and the knock-on effects of what they did, I think, are going to take some time to unravel, because there are a lot of countries in the world that are unhappy with the way that US did this, because of course in many cases they actually think that they see themselves in the same situation, and they wonder if US is going to.
Pedro Sanchez, Spanish Prime Minister, is saying Spain will recognize an intervention that violates international law and pushes the region towards a horizon of uncertainty and belligerence. So this is what the Spanish Prime Minister has said. Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General, has said that these developments constitute a dangerous precedent. That's what Antonio has said. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, he's congratulated the President Trump, of course, and he said, "Congratulations, President Trump, for your bold and historic leadership on behalf of freedom and justice," one of the very few positive reactions that are coming in. Russian Foreign Ministry, this is deeply concerning and condemnable, which is what most of the countries are seeing. Javier Milei, Argentinian president, excellent news for the free world, is what the Argentinian president has said. Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister, We regarded Maduro as an illegitimate president and we shed no tears about the end of his regime. Another strong statement there. And Wang Yi, Chinese foreign minister. China is deeply shocked and strongly condemns the use of force by the US against a sovereign country. Interestingly, that's coming in from China. Let's talk about Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister. He said that in the current situation, it is important, first and foremost, to prevent further escalation. That is the need of the hour, really. And all right, now I'm going back to my guests, and of course I want to go now to Saturo, who's joining me from Japan. Saturo, we've shared all these reactions that are coming in from various countries. What would you like to say on that?
Yeah, in this case, which side they are is reflected because China and Russia start to say they are looks like the protector of the international law. Their attitude is, despite they violate many international norms. So, but instead of this, some U.S. side countries clearly support the United States. So, in this case, what is the topic is not based on the international law. In this case, which side you are is the only matter in this case. So, of course, values many countries respected after the World War II, especially recently, is based on international law. That is true, and that is important, that is true. But at the same time, when the country faces a crisis, most important thing is enemy or friend. That is a reality I understand recently, because recently many countries choose a side instead of choose the justice or not. So, of course, that kind of age is not the best age, I know, but at the same time, world is tilting towards such kind of course is true, I think. And we need the military power to defend ourselves. That is clearly, so many countries will strengthen their military power day by day. That is the current course, I think. And but in case of the Venezuela, success or not rely on the support from the local people. But local people support is especially rely on the attitude of the Venezuela military, I think. Because currently the Venezuela military is supporting the Maduro government. So that's why currently, even if many people support the democracy, still the Venezuela, the Maduro government can sustain their power. But so if the Venezuela army change the side to the more democratic side, opposition side, of course it will be the good change. So, and the success of the U.S. controlled Venezuela, changing the regime could be successful if the army change attitude. But will it happen? It rely on the situation after that. So that's why I focusing on the attitude of the Venezuela army now.
All right, I want to go across to Glenn Grant now. Now, Glenn, of course, the US has taken over Venezuela, and of course, my question to you now is that do you think oil prices around the world are also going to be impacted because of this?
Yes, but I'm not sure in which way, because it depends. I mean, at the moment, we're not getting anything like the volume of oil out of Venezuela that would allow the prices to remain, competitive and to push the price down. And people have talked about, well, this is going to drop the price, which is bad for Russia. But that presupposes that America can actually get in and help the oil facilities and system to actually to come to the level where it actually affects the world prices. And that at the moment, there is no guarantee that America is going to be able to do that. If they do, I think we could see prices come down across the world. If they don't, then I think they'll stay at the current level, which benefits Russia in its war against Ukraine.
All right. Saturo, I have the same question for you. How do you feel this will impact, firstly, the economy also of Venezuela? Because ultimately what happens is that when all of this happens, it's really the common man that gets affected. The economy of Venezuela is one point. The oil prices globally is another. What would you like to say?
Temporarily, of course, many people worry about the price. But when we check the price of the oil in the long run, indeed, recently the price is declining. So that's why temporarily the crisis happens, the price will rise. But in the long run, because of the policy of the United States to dig baby, something like that. So indeed, increase the production could happen, and the price will decline. And but at the same time, in the near future, if many countries continue to use fossil fuel, firstly, shortage of fuel could happen, or another thing is environment issue could happen. Because of this, maybe it will affect the price. But anyway, just now, increasing the production of the fossil fuel is the current trend, and compare with the demand, the supply is big. So that's why just now it will not a big problem, I believe. That is the situation.
All right. I'll come back to both my guests. Now, the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs has released a statement following the capture of Maduro. The statement reads, and I quote, "The government of Japan has consistently emphasized the importance of restoring democracy in Venezuela as soon as possible." I'm coming to you, Glenn. Glenn Grant, of course, he's joining me from Latvia. Now, Glenn, the question is that, there are some ways in which Maduro will be tried. Do you think, when it comes to America, Trump usually does not, surely he wouldn't listen to the other countries really. He has a mind of his own and he's going to do what he wants. But do you think that, certain conditions will apply to the legal proceedings that are now going to be happening in the US?
No. I think that you've seen in the last year plus, or the last year, that basically American legal proceedings are almost bipolar. You have the Democrats on one side who are trying to keep the law, and then you have the Republicans on the other side who are trampling over the law, as Trump is trampling over the law. So this is going to be a run by the Republican side, and they will get a conviction on Maduro, whatever happens. So I don't think that Maduro is going to be a free man for very much longer. And I don't see that the world or anybody else is going to actually to affect what happens in the courts. I think the Americans would not have done this if they didn't believe that they already had sufficient evidence over the last 5-10 years, in fact, of Maduro's guilt. Most of that evidence is electronic, so phone tapping and CIA work with talking to people inside Venezuela and talking to Americans who are dealing with the Venezuelans. So they must have enough evidence. So I don't see that this is going to be a long drawn out trial. I think each case will come up and the evidence will be presented, and then that in quick fashion, and then that will be it. It's what happens then is really important. I mean, I like the Japanese have actually said we want democracy, but how do you get democracy when the large part of the government and the system in Venezuela are Maduro's people. So is America going to kill all of those? They're not going to get removed. Most of them will hang on to grim death for their seats. So whatever happens to Maduro, they will just write that off and just carry on doing what they're doing, making money and running the country for their own ends. So I think we've got a long way to go yet in this. And I don't think that the court case will make much difference, except perhaps to stiffen resolve of Maduro's people inside Venezuela.
That's a very well made point, and I want to go across to Satoru Nagao now. He's joining me from Japan. Satoru, now with the stepping in of the United Nations, how do you see, because we're concluding with yours and my other guests' thoughts really, I am going to ask you and Glenn for your concluding thoughts. What do you foresee happening in the future?
Happening in the future in the United Nations was an international related issue is it rely on the power. If the US is only superpower, for example, the situation in 1990s, that time the United Nations based on international law work very well. Because that time the US assures this law. When the humanitarian intervention are common that time, and that time, because people talk in the United Nations, people can agree, because the US assured this law, this system. Indeed, law is something like that. In the domestic law, for example, the currency is one example. One paper is $1, another paper is $100. Why? Because the government assured this. So that's why both in reality is both are just a paper. But this is a ticket the government assured $100 or $1. So it looks like the law rely on the power. So in this case, now current world, especially about the United Nations, especially about the international law, who provides the power is the matter. And in this case, we cannot find. So that's why in this case, just we need to talk about power is the current trend we are working. And so if we see someone who will be the clear victor winner of this competition, strategic competition, of course that time we will find someone who provide the power to the law. But without this, during that strategic competition process, firstly, we need to win. That is maybe current course we are working. So that's why we see we need a strategy and we need military power. That is my recent trend, I think.
All right. We're short of time now, so I'll have to conclude. But Glenn Grant and Satoru Nagao, thank you so much for joining me on NewsX. And with that, we're slipping into a short commercial break. We'll see you on the other side.